Today we're analyzing a deeply fascinating and foundational text from the Seven Shadows Archive chronology records, specifically zeroing in on chapter 173, the second inversion. We're going to treat this explainer almost like a serious, uncompromising academic case study because the concepts here are that profound. We are exploring the precise mechanics of a socioeconomic inversion, specifically the transmutation of the third shadow, greed, into a sovereign virtue known as infinite abundance. If you've ever wondered how systemic greed structurally destroys a society from the inside out and what the mathematical antithesis to that destruction actually looks like, this is it. Okay, let's dive into this. We'll map this inversion across 5 precise milestones: the conduit of avarice, the hyperconcentration vacuum, the calculus of scarcity and abundance, unlocking the circulating network, and finally, the velocity ledger audit.
Chapter 1. The Conduit of Avarice.
The text presents a core structural axiom right out of the gate, and it's absolutely crucial we grasp this before moving forward. Material hoarding is not an expression of strength. It is a profound panic of structural isolation. Historically, you see, the topography of avarice was designed as a living machine in the southern delta. It was an open conduit of transit, a fluid hub where 5 major river networks converged, operating with wide wharves and open locks. But when the shadow of greed crept in, the city was warped into a socio-economic black hole. The ruling faction, the Guild of the Gilded Scale, made a fatal, systemic error. They mistook the medium of exchange for actual value. So they replaced those open docks with iron portcullises. They took beautiful granite storehouses and converted them into massive, silent tombs for dead gold. They honestly thought burying wealth was the only defense against uncertainty.
Chapter 2. The Hyper-Concentration Vacuum.
Because once you buried that wealth, you need an administrative architecture to justify keeping it buried, even as the world around you starves. This brings us to the policy of the Iron Reserve. It was implemented by High Archon Midasen as a strict one-way valve system. Think of it like a severely clogged artery in a human body. Wealth goes down into the subterranean obsidian vaults, and absolutely nothing comes back out to oxygenate the rest of the system. Midasen's cognitive architecture was so warped by the shadow that he genuinely normalized systemic starvation as a form of civic prudence. He acted as a legalistic lock on the entire economy. And the economic consequences? Devastating. Peripheral farming and mining communities were completely drained of currency, forcing them to revert to primitive barter economies just to survive, as their fields literally turned to dust. To hold a society in this state of artificial famine, the shadow distributed its structural load across 3 specialized vectors, the 3 anchors of scarcity. First, as we mentioned, you have Midasen on the administrative side, legally locking the system tight. Then you have Master Agrarian Morvath. His specific job was agricultural hoarding. He built these massive lead-lined great granaries and basically swallowed the entire continental wheat harvest. And to stop a revolt, he manufactured an illusion of an endless, catastrophic winter. That was his justification for why the state had to hoard all the food. Finally, you have Grand Merchant Prince Vane. He handled the monetary extraction, actively pulling physical specie out of the market until the regional velocity of currency hit absolute zero.
Chapter 3. Calculus of Scarcity and Abundance.
So how do you defeat a system that is legally, agriculturally, and monetarily locked tight? Well, not with a magical sword. You dismantle it with formal mathematical structures. During the central confrontation, as the liquid gold web of the shadow physically tries to consume the Guild Council, a character named Ilyan Marr steps up. He delivers this profound philosophical dismantling of the entire vacuum illusion. He tells them outright, Dead gold within a vault represents systemic decay rather than security. He proves to the council that what they thought was their ultimate armor was actually the very thing suffocating their empire. But philosophy alone isn't enough, right? They needed mathematical proof.
And this is where we need to allocate our full attention, because the raw algebra of material circulation is the core of this explainer. The young scribe, Lucan, steps in with equation 1.2, sovereign abundance. He posits that abundance, represented by phi, equals the sum of resource volume, that's R sub I, multiplied by distribution velocity squared. Now, why is the velocity squared? This is the central structural axiom realized. It proves mathematically that systemic power isn't about static storage in a vault. Absolute mastery requires flipping the mathematical velocity of wealth from a dead, centralized vacuum into a self-sustaining, circulating network of regional vitality. Containing the wealth guarantees regional starvation, but human innovation, open network trust, and high distribution velocity create an exponential multiplier. It's a function of velocity squared.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly it maps the shadow vectors to their mortal anchors: Midasen, Morvath, and Vane. Just look at the columns here. Each anchor casts a specific systemic illusion, like Morvath's fake endless winter, which was then systematically shattered by a governing calculus to reveal a sovereign virtue. It's a flawless diagnosis and structural cure. This matrix binds the entire mechanical world-building of the text together beautifully, showing exactly how a complex socio-economic problem was mathematically broken down and solved.
Chapter 4. Unlocking the Circulating Network. Having proven the mathematical necessity of movement, we hit the turning point in the High Hall, the moment of transmutational momentum. Master Lucan uses the mathematics of systemic efficiency to intervene. Out of pure structural compassion, he stabilizes his internal character to absorb the geometric load of the shadow, and the rollout of the solution is immediate and engineered. First, they accept the transmutational load to flip the shadow. Next, those massive lead-lined granary doors are unlocked, swinging wide open to load river barges, fuel the grain transit grid, and fund new infrastructure. Finally, they open public exchange banks to issue low-friction credit. In a matter of moments, a dead centralized vacuum is inverted into a self-sustaining network.
Chapter 5. The Velocity Ledger Audit. Fixing a system for a day isn't the same as fixing it forever, is it? We have to examine the core innovation of this new circulating network. To prevent a relapse into hoarding, they institute what is called the velocity ledger. This is a brilliant self-correcting loop that actively penalizes stagnant capital. Overseen by the newly formed Council of the Five Rivers, this ledger acts as a permanent economic shock absorber. It ensures that money and resources absolutely must flow. By penalizing those who try to build new tombs for dead gold, it actively replaces static physical scarcity with exponential open network trust. It mathematically forces cross-regional vitality.
And this brilliantly illustrates the cosmic perspective of this entire event. From his throne of unmelting ice in the frozen gray wastes, the ancient watcher Belial verifies this second inversion. He records the triumph of the circulation engine, but he makes a critical, sobering observation. This victory is an operational anchor for free will, not a permanent genetic cure. As the text beautifully and quite seriously puts it, the ledger of human nature remains permanently wet. Which leaves us with a final lingering thought. Because that ink on the ledger of human nature is wet for every newborn child, this circulating network is inherently fragile. It demands active participation. So I leave you with this question straight from the source text. Will subsequent generations actively choose the exponential multiplier of distribution and open trust, or will they inevitably fall back into the panic of structural isolation and hoarding? It's a profound question that echoes far beyond the city of avarice. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the archives, and I hope this helped you visualize the uncompromising mechanics of the second inversion.